read the question.
Lance Armstrong.
All right, you got to look at that picture.
He makes it in once a month.
He does. This is a really good question because
it's a toss-up between him and Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, okay. All right, you can pull Lance Armstrong down here. Pull him down so they can look. I want them to look at me, not Lance Armstrong, because we're going to get to the end of this thing here. We're not criticizing Lance Armstrong.
No.
We're going to get into the supplement business in a minute. My father had or has myeloma. I guess, then how does that say? Had or has, which is in remission. So he has myeloma, yeah. but it's in remission. So that was interesting the way they put it. On weekly Velcade shots, and that's one of the, remember Revlimid's pills. So probably got a rash from the pills because people like pills better, but Velcade is an easy shot. So he's doing fine. Now we hate to do this again, but here he goes. He almost died from COVID in June. And he was in the hospital for 3 weeks and ended up on dialysis. So that tells you that he had acute renal failure because if his myeloma was in remission, his kidney function was normal when he got sick. Now, myeloma patients are immune suppressed and they can get COVID, and he did, and he survived it. And he ended up on dialysis. So he never even left the hospital before he ended up on dialysis. We have a very prominent person in this community who spent about 9 months in the hospital on ventilators and stuff and was dialyzed for 1.5 years and is now normal. Dialysis ended 3 weeks ago. So he's off dialysis and he's at home. The myeloma workup last week showed that his blood protein was low and that 2 grams of urine protein, that's not normal, was not myeloma. So he was spilling non-myeloma protein in his urine, but his myeloma was still in remission. He is anemic. Well, no kidding. Acute renal failure, he should be really anemic. And the oncologist is starting him on Lance Armstrong shots. That's probably you, the picture, right? And does not want to restart Velcade at this time. Why not? And is it safe? Well, why not is he's in remission having had Velcade. He's got none of this protein in his urine, and when you get somebody in remission, generally you maintain the Velcade for at least 1 year or 2. You don't tell me how long he's been on the Velcade. But he had acute renal failure, he's anemic, and he's just getting over dialysis, and there's no hurry. You don't need to start him back treating athlete's foot or dandruff if he's got something he just got off dialysis. In other words, the myeloma is way down here in terms of importance, and the acute renal failure and the fact that he's got nephrotic syndrome, he's spilling protein in his urine, is a lot more important than this disease that's in remission. So what we're doing here now is, this is a primary care question. This is a patient, although he's been terribly ill, and it's going to explain why, who actually just has protein in his urine that's not myeloma. So Ray has physical exams he does on people. They urinate in a cup. I think they probably do that if they're diabetic every 6 months or so. Yeah. If you're totally normal, you probably do it every 3 years if you're less than 40 or 50, and then when you get to greater than 50, he's going to take a history. If you've got hypertension or this, you'll do it more frequently. If you're just a normal guy, you'll do it less frequently.
And particularly diabetics.
Yeah, but it's like diabetics, hypertensives. That's part of a routine exam. Okay, put the next one up. So what he has is defined as
what?
Nephrotic syndrome.
Nephrotic
syndrome. All right, if you look at this.
Nephrotic syndrome.
All that tells you is there's protein in the urine, and it's caused by the kidney. Mm-hmm. It's not caused by myeloma. It's not caused by anything else. Nephrotic means it's caused by the kidney.
The body does not like and should not be throwing away protein.
Protein, right? That's why you got
be pissing protein.
Yeah,
you don't want
to.
You want to be doing.
You don't want to be doing. All right, put that next one up. Well, we were going through those long lists of things that when we were looking at pulmonary nodules. So if you look at the classification and characterization of proteinuria types, that seems kind of interesting. But anything that's here that's less than 1 gram a day, and that was 2 grams a day, she said. So once you get in here where it says 2 grams a day, this is not benign. It's not something, you can pull that down now. It's not something that generally occurs with aging. I am 82 years old, almost 83. If I've got a small amount of protein in my urine, Ray ain't going to worry about that. If you're 30 years old, you got protein in your urine, more than 30 milligrams or 100 milligrams in 24 hours, he's going to worry about that. So, what we got next, Ray KP?
Algorithm.
Okay, long one, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so first thing you start out with was a physical examination. Is it normal? Well, as far as we know, physically now the guy pretty much is normal. So basically, you're just going to go through a long another. Pull this down here. You're going to first of all you're going to confirm it's still there. You know, was there something wrong with the lab? Then they did a 24-hour urine, and so this man, I'm going to tell you what happened to him. He went in the hospital with COVID. He dropped his blood pressure. He probably was on oxygen. He poorly perfused his kidney. His kidney then got low oxygen damage, tubular necrosis, that's called, acute tubular necrosis. It's healing or going to heal, we hope, but because it's not
Injured,
healed,
yeah.
injured, it's weeping protein. I just want you to imagine you got poison ivy. You got poison ivy, and this fluid that comes through the top is protein being leaked through the skin. When a kid falls on the playground and scrapes his knee and gets a scab, that scab is protein that leaked through the skin and then coagulated and is going to be healing. So pull up the next one. We're going to talk about EPO for just a minute. Lance Armstrong shots are EPO. So you remember that the kidney makes this hormone, erythropoietin, in response to a low oxygen tension or to anemia. In renal failure, it doesn't make it normally, and you therefore give it in the shot form. Okay? Pull that down. So that's the appropriate treatment for your father. Remember that we're going back to Lance Armstrong now. I've told you this story many times, did it a few weeks ago, that Lance Armstrong had cancer. He was dying. He went to Indiana, and my buddy Larry Einhorn put him on new chemotherapy that's still called the Einhorn regimen, that took metastatic testicular cancer from like 99% fatal to 98% curable, but it makes you anemic. Well, Larry was part of a study, I was part of the same study, that was using this hormone, erythropoietin, to bring your blood count up while you're taking chemo. And they used that in Lance Armstrong. When Lance Armstrong was through with treatment and was cured, he was weak as a kitten. He'd been in bed for a year, really. So it took him 2 years on the bicycle before he felt like he could go compete again. But he was not competing at a level that was world class, and he knew that he should be that good, but he wasn't. And he remembered that study that had been done on the drug erythropoietin. Now, we've also said, I've been in professional athletics since 1973, the East Germans had steroids they used, and then all the East Germans won everything, weightlifting and all the rest of it. Then they found a way to test for it. Then they took their medals away from them. And then after that, we had the Olympics, remember, in Mexico City, and then we started trying to take people to altitude to get their blood counts up, which still didn't have any other way to do it except testosterone. So that's when people started giving their own blood, putting it in the freezer, and then the night before a sporting event, they'd thaw out the blood, give their own blood back. That way, it's got their own
doping.
blood, called blood doping.
Yeah.
But they got away with that for 8 years until they found a way to test in the urine for the material that's used to anticoagulate the blood to prove that you had blood doped. All right. So what became next was erythropoietin. So Lance Armstrong now for 8 years rides the Tour de France and wins it 8 times in a row, and they don't have any way to test for EPO. And then when he stops competing, they have a way to test for Procrit or EPO, and they go back and take all of his urines out of the freezer, and all of them got EPO in it. So they shamed him. They took away his medals. He had to pay back to the Postal Service $20-something million in support. Put up the next picture. So I really wasn't joking when I said that you can go on the internet and you can find something that'll make Ray grow hair, it's going to be always going to be priced below $75 a month and above $50. And the people have shown that if you want something to increase your manhood, or something to grow hair, or something to increase your breast size in women or something, that's the price point that people will do on the
$2 a
internet.
day.
Exactly.
In that $2 a day range, people will go for anything.
They'll buy anything.
Yeah.
And then the money back guarantee, nobody, ask Australian Dream, send me your empty jar and I'll send you back your money or something. Nobody ever goes to that trouble. They just quit buying it. So read, what's
$2 a day.
buy anything.
Buy
Yeah,
any-
just-
it'll get you.
I picked up on that.
Yeah.
All right. What's that say?
I might market something. I mean, I might just
What's that say?
Epo Boost. What is it? Natural blood builder.
What's the show here? Got
It
a
shows
bicycle? guy
Swimming,
running?
bicycle,
Yeah,
and running. Yeah.
triathlon. So,
Multi-billion-dollar industry.
right. Now, so just imagine that you are one of these, pull that down now. You're one of these local high school kids, and you're on the second string, or you're not quite fast enough in track, and you know all about Lance Armstrong. You know that, and if you get into high school sports, they'll go test you for steroids. Now you can go to some of these gyms around here and get some testosterone and stuff. But he gets on the internet and he reads that's a natural booster of erythropoietin. Paid $60-70 or something to get it. Now remember, we had the wife of a senator who died taking
Garbage. Taking garbage.
1 week ago.
Yeah.
So now this is the rest of that. Put the next one up. Got the next one up? This is the verbiage below this. Now I want to carefully read this. EPO Boost, natural blood builder, improves performance and endurance by naturally stimulating EPO production and increasing oxygen with echinacea, dandelion root, iron, anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidants, blah, 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 blah.
You always need that dandelion root. For some reason, the
but
dandelion
now you
root's
stop and
always
think,
gotta be
why'd
there.
that woman die? Because no stuff's made in China. Nobody knows what in the world is in this stuff. Then from that point forward, they're not really giving you any baloney. If your blood count's higher, your VO2 max goes up. True, but that doesn't mean that this product's going to do it. And then they say that this company is committed to nutrition and developing marketing science-based innovative nutrition products with uncompromising standards. You can pull that down and throw it away. When you start reading that stuff and they want $50 to $75 a month out of you, don't do it. It's BS. Ray, just how many billion did you say it was?
No, it's billions. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
So we're back to the same thing we were on last week, which was from the news. This is to answer the question. First of all, I'll finish with a question. Why not give him the Velcade? I already told you it's not near as important now as with kidney disease. That he's in remission. He might be in remission 2 months, he might be in remission 2 years before that protein shows back up and he needs to restart the Velcade. Yes, the protocol that he was on probably continued the Velcade for a year, and he wasn't finished with the year, but stopping when he's in remission is totally safe, and observing him and waiting until he relapses. He's got some age on him. He might die of a heart attack or something before then, and he'll never go back on Velcade. And is it safe to begin him on Lance Armstrong shots? And the answer is absolutely yes. We know that the Procrit will raise his blood count. It'll improve the way he feels. And I believe God's going to heal that acute tubular necrosis. Now, that might take a month, and it might take 6 months, but generally by a year after acute tubular necrosis, you have regained most of your kidney function. So that's the end of that one.
Here's a good rule of thumb on that. Generally, our bodies in a healthy situation in 6 weeks will recover like 90% of the function that was lost. So that's a good time when if you want to watch something as an observer and say, okay, well, how much time should I give this? 6 weeks is a good fan. Now, as physicians, we have intervals that we set for almost anything. How long should I wait before I retest? But I'm just saying, for most folks, if something's persisting or getting worse over a 6-week period, the alarm should be going off. I need to go get this looked at. The second point is we talked about nephrotic syndrome, which just means there's protein in the urine. Out of every one person I'm treating or dealing with proteinuria, there are 2 in the world that don't know they have it. And proteinuria is a disease, and it's many different causes, but in diabetics, it's ultimately going to be the death of their kidneys. So folks,
that ruins your whole day.
Yeah, you don't have kidneys, you're on dialysis, and that's a whole different life. But or you're dead. Okay. So proteinuria is an important thing. Unfortunately, Medicare has decided that they're not going to pay for urinalysis in doctors' offices, so you see a lot less urinalysis being done because it's not being paid for. So doctors have to reach in their own pocket to do simple urine test. That's a dumb move by Medicare, but I don't want to go off on that. Rule of thumb for the public is and this is not hard and fast, if you see foam in the urine, you don't need to go run to the doctor and say, I got protein in my urine. But if you're seeing foamy urine repeatedly, you may be spilling protein, and that may be something you should get checked.